The Hebrew Bible, 5 books of Moses, Book of Numbers, chapter 29. And in the 7th month, on the first of the month, you shall have a sacred assembly. No task of work shall you do. A day of trumpeting it shall be for you. And you shall do a burnt offering, a fragrant odor to the Lord, 1 bull from the herd, 1 ram, 7 unblemished yearling lambs, and their grain offering mixed with oil, 3/10 for the bull, 2/10 for the ram, and 1/10 for each lamb of the 7 lambs, and a goat for an offense offering to atone for you, besides the burnt offering of the new moon, and its grain offering, and the perpetual burnt offering, and its grain offering, and their libations, according to their rule as a fragrant odor, or fire offering to the Lord. And on the 10th of the 7th month you shall have a sacred assembly, and you shall afflict yourselves, no task shall you do. And you shall offer up a burnt offering to the Lord, a fragrant odor, 1 bull from the herd, 1 ram, 7 unblemished yearling lambs you shall have. And their grain offering, fine semolina flour mixed with oil, 3/10 for the bull, 2/10 for the 1 ram, 1/10 for every lamb of the 7 lambs, 1 goat as an offense offering, besides the offense offering of atonement, and the perpetual burnt offering, and its grain offering, and the libations. And on the 15th day of the 7th month you shall have a sacred assembly. No task of work shall you do. And you shall celebrate a festival to the Lord 7 days. Excuse me. And you shall offer up a burnt offering, a fire offering, a fragrant odor to the Lord, 13 bulls from the herd, 2 rams, 14 yearling lambs, unblemished they shall be. And the grain offering, fine semolina flour mixed with oil, 3/10 for each bull of the 13 bulls, 2/10 for each ram of the 2 rams, and 1/10 for every lamb of the 14 lambs, and 1 goat as an offense offering, besides the perpetual burnt offering, its grain offering, and its libation. And on the 2nd day 12 bulls from the herd, 2 rams, 14 unblemished yearling lambs, and their meal offering and their libations, for the bulls and for the rams and for the lambs by their number and according to their rule, and 1 goat as an offense offering, besides the perpetual burnt offering and its grain offering and their libations. And on the 3rd day 11 bulls, 2 rams, 14 unblemished yearling lambs, and the grain offering and their libations, for the bulls and for the rams and for the lambs by their number according to their rule, and 1 offense offering goat, besides the perpetual burnt offering and its grain offering and its libation. And on the 4th day 10 bulls, 2 rams, 14 unblemished yearling lambs, their grain offering and their libations, for the bulls, for the rams, and for the lambs by their number according to their rule, and 1 goat as an offense offering, besides the perpetual burnt offering, its grain offering, and its libation. And on the 5th day 9 bulls, 2 rams, 14 unblemished yearling lambs, and their grain offering and their libations, for the bulls, for the rams, and for the lambs by their number according to their rule, and 1 offense offering goat, besides the perpetual burnt offering and its grain offering and its libation. And on the 6th day 8 bulls, 2 rams, 14 unblemished yearling lambs, and their grain offering and their libations, for the bulls, for the rams, and for the lambs by their number according to their rule, and an offense offering goat, besides the perpetual burnt offering, its grain offering, and its libations. And on the 7th day bulls, 2 rams, 14 unblemished yearling lambs, and their grain offering, and their libations, for the bulls, for the rams, and for the lambs by their number according to their rule, and 1 offense offering goat, besides the perpetual burnt offering, its grain offering, and its libation. On the 8th day you shall have a convocation. No task of work shall you do, and you shall offer up a burnt offering, fire offering, a fragrant odor to the Lord, 1 bull, 1 ram, 7 unblemished yearling lambs, their grain offering and their libations, for the bull, for the ram, and for the lambs, by their number according to their rule, and 1 offense offering, goat, besides the perpetual burnt offering, its great offering and its libation. These shall you do for the Lord in your fixed seasons, besides your votive offerings, and your donations as your burnt offerings, and your grain offerings, and your libations, and your community sacrifices. And Moses said to the Israelites, as all the Lord had charged Moses. Chapter 30. And Moses spoke to the heads of the tribes of the Israelites, saying, This is the thing that the Lord has charged. Should a man take a vow or make an oath to the Lord, to take upon himself a binding pledge, he shall not profane his word. According to all that issues from his mouth he shall do. And should a woman take a vow to the Lord and make a binding pledge in her father's house in her mouth, and her father hear her vow and her binding pledge that she took upon herself, and her father remains silent to her, all her vows shall stand, and every binding pledge that she took upon herself shall stand. But should her father restrain her when he hears all her vows and her binding pledges that she took upon herself, it shall not stand, and the Lord will forgive her, for her father restrained her. But should she indeed become immense with her vows upon her, or her lips' utterances that she made binding upon herself, and her husband hear of it at the time he hears, and remains silent to her, her vows shall stand, and her binding pledges that she took upon herself shall stand. And if at the time her husband hears, he restrains her and annuls her vow that is upon her, and her lips' utterance that she took upon herself as a binding pledge, the Lord will forgive her. And the vow of a widow or a divorced woman, all that she took up on herself as a binding pledge shall stand. And if she vowed in her husband's house, or took upon herself a binding pledge by oath, and her husband heard and remained silent to her, he did not restrain her, all her vows and every binding pledge that she took upon herself shall stand. But if her husband indeed annulled them at the time he heard, whatever issues from her lips in regard to her vows and her binding pledge shall not stand. Her husband has annulled them, and the Lord will forgive her every vow and every binding oath to afflict oneself. Her husband shall let it stand, and her husband shall annul it. And if her husband indeed remains silent to her day after the day, lets all her vows stand, or all her binding pledges that are upon her, he has let them stand, for he remained silent to her when he heard. But if he indeed annuls them after he has heard her bear her guilt, these are the statutes that the Lord charged Moses between a man and his wife, between a father and his daughter in her youth and in her father's house. And the Lord spoke to Moses. Chapter 31. Saying, Wreak the vengeance of the Israelites against the Midianites. Afterward you shall be gathered to your kin. And Moses spoke to the people, saying, Send forth a vanguard of men for the army, from them to be against Midian, to exact the Lord's vengeance from Midian. 1,000 for every single tribe, for all the tribes of Israel you shall send them to the army. And 8,000 for the tribe, 12,000 of the thousands of Israel were delivered as vanguards of the army. And Moses sent them out, 1,000 for the tribe to the army, them and Phinehas, son of Eleazar, the priest, to the army, and the sacred vessels and the trumpets for blasting were in his hand. And they arrayed against Midian as the Lord had charged Moses, and they killed every male. And they killed the kings of Midian besides their slain men, Evi and Rechem and Sur and Hur and Reba, and 5 kings of Midian, and Balaam, son of Beor, they killed by the sword. And the Israelites took the Midianite woman captive, and their little ones, and all their cattle, and all their livestock, and all their wealth they plundered, and all their towns and their places of settlement, and all their encampments they burned to the ground. And they took all the booty and all the spoil, both human and beast. And they brought to Moses and to Eleazar the priest and to the community of Israelites the captives and the spoil and the booty to the camp in the steppes of Moab, which are at the Jordan opposite Jericho. And Moses and Eleazar the priest and all the chieftains of the community came out to meet them outside the camp. And Moses was furious with the commanders of the force, the captains of the thousands, and the captains of the hundreds who came for the battling army. And Moses said to them, "You have led every female alive. Look, these are the ones who led the Israelites by Balaam's word to betray the Lord's trust in the affair of Peor, and they were as a scourge against the Lord's community. And now kill every male among the little ones, and every woman who has known a man in lying with a male, kill. And all the little ones of the women who have not known lying with a male, let live. And you camp outside the camp 7 days. Everyone who has killed a person, everyone who has touched the slain, you shall cleanse yourself on the 3rd day, and on the 7th day you and your captives. And every garment, and every article of leather, and everything made of goatskin, and every wooden vessel you shall cleanse." And Eleazar the priest said to the men of the army who came to the battle, "This is the statutes of teaching that the Lord had charged Moses. Only the gold and the silver and the bronze and the iron, the tin, the lead, everything that can come into fire you shall pass through fire, and it will be clean. Only in riddance water shall it be cleansed. And everything that cannot come into fire you shall pass through water. And you shall wash your garments on the 7th day, and you shall be clean. Afterward shall you come into the camp." And the Lord said to Moses, saying, "Count the heads of the spoil of captives, both human and beast, you and Eleazar the priest, and the heads of their fathers of the community. You shall divide the spoil in half between those who bore arms in battle, who went out to the army, and the whole community. And you shall raise a Levi for the Lord, for the men of war who go out to the army, one living creature out of 500, from the humans, and from the cattle, and from the donkeys, and from the sheep. From their half share you shall take it, and give it to Eleazar the priest as the Lord's donation. And from the half share of the Israelites you shall take 1 part of 50 from the humans, from the cattle, from the donkeys, and from the sheep, from all the beasts, and you shall give them to the Levites, keepers of the watch of the Lord's tabernacle." And Moses and Eleazar the priest did as all the Lord had charged Moses, and the spoil over and over above the plunder that the troops of the army had plundered came to 675,000 sheep, and 72,000 head of cattle, and 61,000 donkeys, and human persons of the women who had not known lying with a male. All the persons came to 32,000. And half the share of those who went out to the army, the number of sheep was 337,500. And the Levi for the Lord from the sheep came to 675. And the cattle 36,000 head, and their Levi to the Lord 72. And donkeys 30,500, and their Levi to the Lord 61. And human persons 16,000, and their Levi to the Lord 32 persons. And Moses gave the Levi of the Lord's donation to Eleazar the priest, as the Lord had charged Moses. And of the half share of the Israelites that Moses had split off from the men serving in the army, the half share of the community came to the 337,500 sheep, and cattle 36,000 head, and donkeys 30,500, and human persons 16,000. And Moses took from the half share of the Israelites 1 part of 50 from the human and from the beasts, and he gave them to the Levites, keepers of the watch of the Lord's tabernacle, as the Lord had charged Moses. And the commanders of the armies, thousands, the captains of the thousands, and the captains of the hundreds approached Moses, and they said to Moses, "Your servants have counted the heads of the men of war who are in our hands, and not a man of them is missing. And we would offer up the Lord's offering, each man that he found of gold ornaments or armband, and bracelet, ring, earring, and pendant to atone for our lives before the Lord. And Moses and Eleazar the priest took from them every wrought ornament, and all the gold of the donation that they donated to the Lord came to 16,750 shekels from the captains of the thousands and from the captains of the hundreds. But the men of the ranks had each of them taken booty for himself. And Moses and Eleazar the priest took the gold from the captains of the thousand and the hundreds, and they brought it to the tent of meeting as a remembrance for the Israelites before the Lord. Chapter 32. And the Reubenites and the Gadites had much livestock, very numerous, and they saw the land of Jazer and the land of Gilead, and look, the place was a place for livestock. And the Gadites and the Reubenites came to Moses and to Eleazar the priest and to the chieftains of the community, saying, Ataroth and Dibon and Jazer and Nimrah and Heshbon and Eleah and Sebam and Nebo and Beon, the land that the Lord struck down before the community of Israel is livestock land, and your servants have livestock. And they said, If we have found favor in your eyes, let this land be given to your servants as a holding. Do not make us cross the Jordan. And Moses said to the Gadites and to the Reubenites, Shall your brothers come to battle, and you sit here? And why should you hinder the heart of the Israelites from crossing into the land that the Lord has given to them? Do as your fathers did when I sent them from the Kadesh Barnea to see the land. And they went up as far as Wadi Eshcol and saw Barnea to see the land. And they went up as far as Wadi Eshcol and saw the land, and they hindered the heart of the Israelites from coming into the land that the Lord had given them. And the Lord's wrath flared on that day, and he swore, saying, These men who have come up from Egypt from 20 years old and up shall not see the soil that I swore to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, for they have not fulfilled my behest, save Caleb, son of Jephunneh, the Kenizzite, and Joshua, son of Nun, for they fulfilled my behest. And the Lord's wrath flared against Israel, and he made them wander in the wilderness 40 years, until all the generation that had done evil in the eyes of the Lord came to an end. And look, you have arisen in your father's stead a breed of offending men, to add still more of the Lord's flaring wrath against Israel. For you would turn back from him, so that he would continue to leave them in the wilderness, and you would destroy all these people. And they approached him and said, Sheep enclosures we shall build here for our livestock, and towns for our little ones. And as for us, we shall head our swiftly in the vanguard before the Israelites until we bring them to their place, and our little ones will dwell in the fortified towns. Because of the inhabitants of the land, we will not return to our homes until the Israelites take possession of every man of his estate, for we will not take possession with them on the other side of the Jordan and beyond, for our estate has come to us on the side of the Jordan to the east. And Moses said to them, If you will do this thing, if you go out in the vanguard to the battle before the Lord, and every member of the vanguard among you crosses the Jordan before the Lord until he dispossesses his enemies before him, and the land he has conquered before the Lord, then you may return, and you will be clear on the Lord of Israel and of Israel. And this land will be a holding for you before the Lord. And should you not do those, look, you will have offended to the Lord, and know your offense, which will find you. Build your towns for your little ones, and enclosures for your sheep, and the utterance of your mouth you shall do. And the Gadites and the Reubenites said to Moses, saying, Your servants will do as my Lord charges. Our little one, our wives, our livestock, and all our beasts will be there in the towns of Gilead. And your servants will cross over all the vanguard of the army before the Lord to the battle, and my Lord speaks, as my Lord speaks. And Moses charged them with Eleazar the priest and Joshua son of Nun and the heads of the fathers of the Israelites' tribes. And Moses said to them, if the Gadites and the Reubenites cross the Jordan with you, all the vanguard to the battle before the Lord, and the land is conquered before you, you shall give them the land of Gilead as a holding. But if they do not cross over with you as a vanguard, they shall find holdings in your midst in the land of Canaan. And the Gadites and the Reubenites answered, saying, that which the Lord has spoken to your servants, so will we do. We will cross over in the vanguard before the Lord to the land of Canaan, while ours will be our secure holding on the other side of the Jordan. And Moses gave to the Gadites and the Reubenites and the half-tribe of Manasseh, son of Joseph, the king of Zihon, king of the Amorite, and the king of Og, king of Bashan, the land with its towns within the borders of the towns of the land all around. And the Gadites built Dibon, and Atorah, and Aroer, and Atroth, Shofan, and Jazer, and Jogbeha, and Beth Nimrah, and Beth Haran, fortified towns and sheep enclosures. And the Reubenites built Heshbon, and Eliah, and Kiriathaim, and Nebobal Meon changed its name, and Sibmah, and they called by names the names of the towns they had built. And the sons of Machir, son of Manasseh, went to the Gilead and captured it, and dispossessed the Amorite who was in it. And Moses gave the Gilead to Machir, son of Manasseh, and he settled in it. And Jair, son of Manasseh, went and captured their hamlets, and called them Jair's hamlets. And Nobah went and captured Kenath and its surrounding villages, and he called it Nobah in his name.